I've only done reactions on here, but I'm trying something different now. And I'm not going to be saying like one's better than the other in this video. It's just a discussion on both of them, why they're both so amazing, as well as discussing the respective stories leading up to each transformation. And this is my first discussion video, so go easy on me. And any constructive criticism is welcome. Also spoilers for the entirety of One Piece and up to the Super Saiyan transformation in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And all the references for where I got the information from, as well as any fan animations I use in the video, will be compiled in a list in the description. Super Saiyan and Gear 5 are two of the most innovative transformations in anime and manga, with one happening more than 30 years ago in 1991 and was so ahead of its time that it inspired the biggest series to come after it, and the other only occurred last year, and it subverted all expectations and redefined the thematics that a power-up could represent in a story. In anticipation for Gear 5's debut in the anime, this video will discuss why both are so great, as well as discussing the title of this video. The start of Dragon Ball was a lot different to what people associate the series to now. It simply just began as a story of a boy called Goku who lived alone in the mountains, meeting a girl called Bulma, where together they went on a quest to find the Dragon Balls whilst Goku trained to grow stronger along the way. They meet a lot of unique personalities like Krillin and Master Roshi, who help Goku on his quest to gain strength, with Master Roshi being his sensei and Krillin being his training partner. And as of this point in the story, the only supernatural aspects of it are the fact that Goku has a tail and can transform into an uncontrollable ape at the sight of the full moon, the introduction of Master Korin, Kami and Mr. Popo.
Alright, maggots, listen up!
As well as the introduction of King Piccolo in the latter half of the series and Piccolo Jr. after that. Moving swiftly on to Dragon Ball Z, Goku now has a son called Gohan, and we instantly learn via Raditz, who learns Goku's older brother, that he is part of an alien race known as the Saiyans, who we meet more of later in the form of Nappa and Vegeta, who reference Super Saiyan when discussing Goku's power, but the extent of its mention seems to be purely as a description of power rather than referencing the legendary transformation, but it could still be foreshadowing for what's to come in the future. The story takes it up a gear as we travel to another planet and have to battle a tyrant called Frieza for the Dragon Balls, with Vegeta, formerly under Frieza's command, reluctantly changing sides to help out. Goku arrives late to take out Frieza's top underlings, the Ginyu Force, leading both Vegeta and Captain Ginyu, the leader of the Force, to wonder,
You're a Super Saiyan! Has he actually done it? There's no way someone like him could become a Super Saiyan!
Is Goku the Super Saiyan of legend? Vegeta falsely uses the title to call himself a Super Saiyan.
I'm becoming the thing you fear most, the legendary Super Saiyan!
But is beaten down by Frieza's hands. Goku has finally recovered and now arrives at the battle, where Vegeta admits,
You're dealing with a real Super Saiyan!
and if you know anything about Vegeta's character, you know about the size of his pride, so him saying this is a really big deal. Frieza then proceeds to kill Vegeta, but before he dies, Vegeta tells Goku the truth of Saiyan's home planet and Frieza's cruelty towards his people. Vegeta asks for vengeance before dying, and a now pissed off Goku honors the request and takes on Frieza.
I am going to finish you!
The fight begins with Frieza using about 50% of his power, and even a Kaioken times 20 Goku can't do anything about it except for burn Frieza's hands. The others then attempt to keep Frieza occupied while Goku charges up a spirit bomb, which, again, if you know Dragon Ball, it takes like 10 episodes, which he then unleashes onto Frieza and seemingly defeats him, but Frieza's still alive and pissed.
Don't do it! Goku!
Now filled with rage and sporting spiked golden hair, the Super Saiyan is born. Frieza unleashes his full power but can no longer stand up to Goku. Even without Super Saiyan, Dragon Ball Z is still one of the most influential anime ever. The most popular show that stood apart from the crowd with characters and villains no one had ever seen before. Back when OG Dragon Ball was still releasing week to week in Shonen Jump, the other heavy hitters were series like The Fist of the North Star, which began in 1983, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which began in 1987. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out what made Dragon Ball so different to these other titles, and how it was able to carve its own unique corner in Shonen Jump. Just compare those muscle-bound macho men to Goku, a little mountain boy. The series introduced an entire generation to the world of anime, on Toonami, which was the TV channel that broadcast anime in the West back in the day. Just watching two characters throw hands with each other and leveling mountains and landscapes was the height of entertainment. And instead of having your classic monster of the week episodic formula that was the norm back in the day, having storylines that stretched over tens of episodes, having villains like Frieza who would be a genuine threat to the main cast was new and refreshing for everyone. And then Super Saiyan, a form like no one had ever seen before, and even across different languages, the original Japanese sub, the dubs. The transformation significance can be summed up in one speech, or rather 3 speeches across different variations. That sums up what made it so powerful, so impactful.
俺は地球から貴様を倒すためにやってきたサイヤ人。穏やかな心を持ちながら激しい怒りによって目覚めた伝説の戦士。スーパーサイヤ人！
The original dub showcases Goku embracing his Saiyan heritage, which hits hard given the fact that Vegeta had told him the truth about Frieza's cruelty and extermination of the Saiyans. He is awakened by anger, which is self-explanatory given Krillin's death moments earlier, but this serious and angry demeanour is something that you'll be able to find in almost every shonen power-up that comes after it. And still possessing a calm heart beneath all the rage, you'll still be able to find the dumb loving Goku.
I am the hope of the universe. I am the answer to all living things that cry out for peace. I am protector of the innocent. I am the light in the darkness. I am truth. Allied to good, nightmare to you.
The first English dub is the original English dub, and it's the one that I watched. It's very different from the others and has a much more righteous tone to it. The speech contains many metaphors with Goku describing himself, and regardless of how much it differs from the original, this speech still represents what all the biggest shonen transformations would also go on to represent in their respective series, and this includes Gear 5.
You haven't figured it out yet? I'm a proud Saiyan who calls Earth home, and I'm here to defeat you. I am the warrior you've heard of in legends, pure of heart and awakened by fury. That's what I am. I am the Super Saiyan Son Goku!
The final speech is from Dragon Ball Z Kai, a remastering of Dragon Ball Z with no filler. This speech is a lot more similar to the original iteration and echoes the same themes, where he embraces his heritage and alludes to his innocent nature underneath all of that rage. To sum it all up, everything your favourite shonen battle series did, Dragon Ball Z did it first. Any power-up your favourite series protagonist gets, it's directly inspired by Super Saiyan. And of course, with each new transformation, it will have its own flair and will attempt to add to the formula that Super Saiyan popularised, but you just cannot be the original. One Piece is a story that spanned over 25 years, and 2 of its core themes have always been freedom and inherited will, and Gear 5 encapsulates both of these themes perfectly. The world building in this story is in a league of its own, with the diversity of locations and characters that you can only find in the One Piece world. from sky islands and people living on the moon to a 35-kilometer tall elephant called Zunisha with a civilization on its back. The two main power systems of the story are devil fruits, which grant a unique ability to its user while taking away the ability to swim, and haki, which is essentially the embodiment of willpower. And just like in One Piece, everything I've just mentioned regarding the world building will come back around in this discussion. Gear 5 comes with the revelation that JoyBoy has returned, and Luffy's Gum Gum fruit, which was thought to simply give him rubber powers, is in fact the human fruit model Sun God Nika, and this part of the discussion will go over the significance and foreshadowing of both JoyBoy and Sun God Nika. The first mention of a sun god came in chapter 287 during a flashback in the Skypiea arc, which takes place on one of those aforementioned sky islands, where a woman is said to be sacrificed as she says that she is going to meet the sun god. The sun is also referenced throughout the story, notably by Otohime, the late queen of Fishman Island. With the pirate fishmen coming under the name of the Sun Pirates, and the fishman history in One Piece is one full of slavery, and in this context the sun has heavy ties to freedom. Also, the sun is referenced by the giants of Elbaf in a flashback in chapter 866 during the Whole Cake Island arc, where they celebrate the death and rebirth of the sun by fasting. They state that the one more struggles during the fast, the more they will appreciate the return of the sun, which heavily parallels how the relief of freedom is going to be greater to those who have suffered the most. Now onto Wano. The sun god Nika is mentioned in chapter 1018 during the fight between Who's Who, a former prisoner, and Jinbei, former captain of the Sun Pirates. Who's Who discusses how he was mockingly told to pray for salvation while he was in prison, and how he heard legends of a warrior that could free slaves, bringing them laughter and freedom, called Sun God Nika. And this silhouette of Nika looks suspiciously similar to a silhouette of Luffy partying during the Skypiea arc. Now moving on to JoyBoy. The name was first mentioned during chapter 628, again during the Fishman Island arc, where an apology is left by this mysterious figure. This is elaborated on in chapter 649, where we learn that the apology was from 800 years ago, during the Void Century, to the mermaid princess of the time for breaking a promise, with the Void Century being a 100-year gap in the world's history where nothing is known, supposedly being kept hidden by the rulers of the world. We can put together that the promise was something along the lines of being able to have humans, fishmen and merfolk live peacefully together under the sun. More ties to freedom. We hear JoyBoy's name again during the Oden flashback in the Wano arc, in chapter 967, where Roger, the king of the pirates, reaches the final island, which is essentially the end goal of the entire series of One Piece for our main character and the crew, apart from each of their individual dreams and aspirations. And here we see, upon laying eyes upon the great treasure of the One Piece, he then says that he wished he lived during the same time as JoyBoy and pays his respects by naming the island Laugh Tale. More links between JoyBoy and the sun god Nika, bringing laughter to the people. Then, at the end of chapter 1043, after Luffy has seemingly been killed, we hear the drums of liberation, and the giant elephant Zunisha proclaims that JoyBoy has returned, with an image of Luffy's signature smile painted across his face. And this all culminates in chapter 1044, where we open with the drums of liberation, which we later learn is Luffy's heartbeat being heard across the island, before going to the world's leaders discussing the most important part of all of this, Luffy's devil fruit, and what makes it so important, before we see an iconic shot of Luffy's silhouette laughing in front of the moon as we learn the truth of his abilities. And this is Gear 5, with the moon juxtaposing the sun, two sides of the same coin, the sun god in front of the moon, representing the dawn. The sun god Nika Devil Fruit gives the user's body the properties of rubber, and in combat they are only limited by their own imagination. The embodiment of the warrior of liberation, awakening the powers, grants him greater strength and even more freedom. Allegedly the most ridiculous power in the world. Not in terms of strength, even though it is really strong, but due to its craziness and wackiness. The aforementioned freedom is represented in combat as Luffy now has rubber hose Toon Force powers, which is basically what we see in old school cartoons such as Popeye and Tom and Jerry. He beefs up his arms to show strength. His legs spin like wheels and leave a flaming trail, showing his speed. His body is completely charred black when he is burned, and his body molds to the shape of the object he is hit with. He will fold like an accordion when he is hit on the head, and we see characters' eyes popping out of their skulls. This is the perfect embodiment of the themes of One Piece. Now, I still have seen some arguments saying that Luffy, being the second coming of this great JoyBoy figure and having the abilities of a sun god, takes away from the story's themes, saying that it seems that Luffy's path was predestined this whole time and it's not from his own free will. And what I'll say to that is that it isn't the fact that Luffy is the reincarnation of JoyBoy straight up, but because Luffy is who he is, because he has the beliefs that he has, those are the reasons why he is JoyBoy. He is able to awaken his devil fruit powers because of his own character. Take any one of these aspects of Luffy away, he does not get this power up. His character lines up perfectly with the themes of the greater story of One Piece, and that is why Gear 5 is the perfect transformation. For example, JoyBoy is from 800 years ago and Luffy is from present day. So if some random guy ate the devil fruit 400 years ago, nothing would come of it, because he does not have the dreams or the personality that someone like Luffy does. So Luffy eating this devil fruit didn't automatically make him the chosen one. If he was unable to mentally and physically recover from something like Ace's death, he wouldn't be here now. Simply put, Luffy happens to the story and the story does not happen to Luffy. We get a scene in chapter 1046 where Kaido asks Luffy who he is, while Zunisha calls out JoyBoy's name, and Luffy's response is the same response that he's given every single other time someone's asked him this question. And of course, at the end of the day, everyone has their own opinion and they have a right to it, and then they can argue it. So if someone disagrees with you or they disagree with the majority, don't talk down on them, and just have a civil discussion about each of your respective viewpoints. And if you don't want to and you're just angry that someone doesn't agree with you, just walk away. Simple as that. I think like 80% of the anime community needs to learn that lesson. Even after all this time, there hasn't been a single change. There has never been an anime power-up like Gear 5, where the character is smiling with a grin stretching from ear to ear, where the character laughs out loud while fighting one of the strongest characters in the story. It's a fresh take on the power-up trope that Super Saiyan built, but instead of having the characters be the most serious that they have ever been before with a frown on their face, although Ichigo could be smiling under there, and I do love both Naruto and Bleach, I promise. But anyways, Gear 5 takes those foundations from Super Saiyan and takes it in a completely new direction, with Luffy having the time of his life, feeling more free than he ever has before. Now other people can argue which one is better, but we're not going to do that here. Super Saiyan is the groundworks for everything that Shonen has come to be in present day, and now Gear 5 has given that a brand new twist on the same subject to create something entirely different. Both power-ups have their own place, and although Super Saiyan will always sit at the top of the mountain thanks to its unmatched influence, I think that in due time Gear 5 will be able to sit on top of that mountain next to Super Saiyan. And with the anime coming up, who knows what that's going to look like. But given how the Wano arc in the anime has looked recently, I have my hopes up, and I think it will be one of the greatest anime moments of all time.